The villain was about to meet his end, but I happened to transmigrate just in time to take the fatal blow for him. Everyone present, including me, was stunned. This is just great. The villain survived. I died. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. I sat on the cold floor of the King of Hell's hall, watching the visibly distressed deity seated above me. You're the one who said I died unjustly and promised me another chance at life, right? I decided to start with reason. The King of Hell rubbed his temples and replied, correct? Then what's your game now? I planted my hands on my hips. I just left this place, only to be sent right back. Are you doing this on purpose? I'd been living perfectly fine in the 21st century until suddenly, boom, my plane exploded. Yes, that's right, the plane exploded. 500 innocent people died with me. Together with these 500 souls, we raised hell in the court of Yama for 3 days and nights. Finally, Yama rubbed his temples and said since our bodies were completely destroyed in the 21st century, resurrection was impossible, but he could offer us 2 choices. One path sends us into the cycle of reincarnation, promising appropriate compensation in our next life. The other path sends us to another world, granting us a chance to live again. Most older souls chose the first option, eager to rush toward a better next life, but I had just turned 20, is still in the bloom of youth, and couldn't bear to waste this lifetime, so I resolutely chose to live again. Who would have thought that the moment I stepped out of the King of Hell's hall, I'd be back again? Probably not even the King of Hell saw this coming. Milady must be mistaken. The oxhead and horseface attendants hurried forward with apologetic smiles. Our King of Hell has gone to great lengths for your sake. Oh. I raised an eyebrow at Oxhead, went through quite some trouble to have me die and live repeatedly. Oxhead kept silent. I turned my gaze to Yama. If he weren't somewhat good-looking, I would have already cursed him out. At this point, all I could do was grind my teeth and ask, you said you specially picked a sweet romance novel for me, pray tell, just how sweet is it? The original plot was supposed to have this villain die, and then everyone would live happily ever after. Horseface scratched his head. I laughed bitterly. Now the villain didn't die, but I did. I was really furious. In his haste to resolve the matter, King Yama somewhat reluctantly asked me what I wanted. My goal achieved. I was just about to happily discuss my long-held idea with the King of Hell when suddenly the world spun around me. What? Can ghosts even get dizzy? This thought had barely crossed my mind when my eyes closed and I lost consciousness. Who exactly are you? Why did you save me? Suddenly a voice sounded by my ear. Who was speaking? My consciousness gradually returned, yet I couldn't open my eyes no matter how hard I tried. An unrelenting chill kept seeping into my body from all directions, bringing a coldness I'd never experienced before, but my eyes remained shut. I didn't know where I was, nor could I recognize the voices speaking beside me. The surroundings fell silent for a moment before footsteps suddenly echoed. That same pleasant voice spoke again. Are you certain this method you mentioned truly works? Reporting to your majesty, this is a method your subject found in ancient texts, though never tested before. It should prove somewhat useful. Another voice replied nervously. Then came the rustling of fabric as the pleasant voice lowered deliberately. What I want is certainty, not possibilities. Your majesty, spare my life, spare your life. You have 10 days. If she doesn't wake up, you'll join her. This. What kind of tyrannical statement is this? Suddenly I realized, this voice sounded somewhat similar to that villain I'd heard when I died. Had I come back to life? For many days thereafter, my body alternated between fever and chills, shifting between comfort and distress. I could hear sounds from the outside world, yet couldn't open my eyes or move a muscle. I couldn't tell how many days had passed. The person who begged me daily to wake up suddenly knelt beside me with a loud thud. Oh, miss. Please have mercy on me. Above me is my 80-year-old mother. Below me are newborn puppies. They truly can't survive without me. He cried so pitifully, his tears flowing freely with heart-wrenching sorrow. Anyone unaware would think I'd already kicked the bucket. I suppose his 10-day deadline had arrived. After he finished crying his eyes out with tears and snot, those steady footsteps grew louder, approaching from afar. Seems your ancient book didn't work. The pleasant voice was icy cold. Neither did you. Even without opening my eyes, I could imagine how terrified the person mourning me must look right now. After all, even I felt a slight chill. Spare me, your majesty, spare me. The plea was choked with tears. If not for merit, then for my years of loyal service, you should know. The melodious voice suddenly laughed, yet the air seemed to grow colder. I recognize only merit, not mere toil. Look at her. Does she acknowledge your so-called loyal service? This person was utterly domineering, truly worthy of being a villain. Then came what sounded like a sword being drawn from its sheath. Your Majesty, the man's voice trembled violently. The thought that this man would soon die because of me made me struggle desperately with all my might, I confess. I shouted at the top of my lungs. I never thought I'd actually manage to struggle free. I struggled so hard that I sat bolt upright, slowly opening my eyes. I realized I was lying inside an ice coffin. No wonder it was freezing to death. Standing beside me was a man dressed in dark robes with a black fur-collared cloak draped over his shoulders. His stern, handsome face looked as if it had been meticulously carved by the Creator himself. It's truly beautiful. His right hand gripped the sword, its blade resting against the neck of the kneeling man. Almost. I exhaled softly and whispered, I acknowledge his hardships. After a pause, feeling it wasn't quite right, I added, and his merits too. After all, I'm truly awake now. The villain withdrew his sword, frowning as he looked at me. The man on the ground slowly stood up, also frowning as he looked at me. Is there something wrong with me? Indeed inappropriate. Drop by drop, blood from the corner of my mouth fell onto the pristine ice coffin. A shocking sight. Ah! Blood, I cried out before fainting once more. Perfect. I awoke, but not completely. When I woke again, I was no longer in the ice coffin, but in an enormous room. Judging by the lavishness of the decor, it probably rivaled the bedchambers of empresses in those palace intrigue dramas. Young lady, you've finally awakened. A maid-like girl approached me. Before I could speak, she happily turned to leave. This servant will inform His Majesty. Is it happiness that I've woken up, or happiness that they can go inform the king? The villain was quickly summoned. He walked to my bedside, looking down at me and asked, why did you save me? What's your purpose? I blinked. How was I supposed to explain this? If you don't explain yourself clearly, I'll kill you right now. Damn it. After going through all that trouble to save me, just to ask why I saved him, is this guy out of his mind? Are all villains in the world mentally unstable? He might as well not have saved me. By now, I could have already negotiated compensation terms with the King of Hell. Seeing my prolonged silence, he sat down by the bed and pinched my chin. Seems you really don't want to live? Well, I still want to live. His grip on my chin hurt so much it forced 2 tears from my eyes. I've admired your majesty for so long. I uttered these words with delicate fragility. I nearly gagged at myself. The villain froze momentarily, his grip on my chin loosening slightly. I seized the chance to cling to his arm, batting my eyelashes at him flirtatiously. Truly, your majesty is my dream lover. To die for your majesty in this lifetime would leave me with no regrets. I was lying through my teeth. The villain's eye twitched as he looked down at me. Oh, then it seems I've ruined your plans. From another perspective, he truly ruined the good arrangement I had negotiated with the King of Hell. But there's no use dwelling on that now. All I can do now is focus on living well. After all, if I were to die again due to my own foolishness, the King of Hell would surely renege on our deal. Oh no. No, being saved by your majesty is a blessing I couldn't earn in several lifetimes. I fawned in reply. The villain completely believed my words and thus spared me. Not that he was being narcissistic. Practically every female creature visible in this royal palace adored him. You're truly the boldest maiden, said Kai. The palace maid attending me, as she brought me a bowl of medicine. His Majesty dislikes nothing more than hearing declarations of admiration, so I've narrowly escaped death's door again. That was really close. This is supposed to be a sweet romance novel. Before sending me here, the King of Hell promised my future would be nothing but happiness and bliss, so I never bothered reading the actual plot. All I know is the world is divided into 3 kingdoms. The villain's name is Xiao Zhang, ruler of Yu Kingdom, who lives up to his name, Zhang meaning arrogant, with his ruthless cruelty and endless wicked deeds that make him deserve death from all. When I first transmigrated here, 2 other countries, Wu and Qin, were already besieging him. Now it seems I've saved nothing but trouble. Realizing this, I've lost my appetite and sleep. constantly feeling like the worst villain in the world, especially after Kai told me how every palace maid who ever confessed admiration for Xiao Zhang mysteriously disappeared. That's when I truly felt irredeemably wicked. Then you still like him? I stared at Kair in shock. Kair pursed her lips and smiled coyly before saying shyly, if I could share a spring night with His Majesty, this life would be worth living. Such hopeless romanticism. I shook my head, convinced she was beyond saving, but I must save myself, even if I were to die young. I can't leave behind a legacy of infamy, so after 3 days and nights of contemplation, I decided to personally lock Xiao Zhang away. Preventing him from ever harming others again would be a truly virtuous deed. With such thoughts in mind, I began to ponder seriously. How could a delicate young woman like me, with no strength to even tie up a chicken, manage to lock up such a major villain? And where would I even lock him? What? He drugged them before striking Kai. And another palace maid named Yun. Were chatting outside the hall, their voices so loud that even I, resting inside, could hear them clearly. That's right, not a single person has ever seen what this flower thief looks like. It's quite troublesome. It's about the notorious flower thief case that's been causing quite a stir among the common folk lately. I rolled over and kept pondering. Wait, knockout drugs. What a brilliant idea. From Kai. I learned that Xiao Zhang usually doesn't eat after noon. But tomorrow is the annual palace banquet. Xiao Zhang will eat a little at the banquet. Heaven helps me indeed. Can I go to tomorrow's palace banquet? I must find a way to slip the medicine into Xiao Zhang's food. Kai hesitated. Then you'll have to ask His Majesty. How dare I ask him? Ever since this thought crossed my mind, I'd instinctively hide whenever I saw Xiao Zhang on the road. Terrified, I'd tremble like a sieve. Not hiding today, Xiao Zhang asked coldly when he saw me stop before him. So all my hiding these past few days was for nothing. Gritting my teeth, I mustered my courage and stepped forward. Your Majesty, may I attend tomorrow's palace banquet? I've been orphaned since childhood, wandering from place to place, and have never seen grand occasions. I heard tomorrow is the annual palace banquet. The scale must be magnificent. My voice trembled with tears as I painted my background in the most pitiful light. Xiao Zhang looked at me and frowned. I glanced at him, noticing his furrowed brow, and felt as though my head was about to roll. Fortunately, he then said, it's just a palace banquet. Go if you must. Why cry? So easy to persuade. My mind raced, and I quickly pushed my luck. Can I sit next to your Majesty? The moment those words left my mouth, the air around us seemed to freeze. Everyone lowered their heads, not daring to breathe. Good. I'll probably die someday because of this mouth of mine that always pushes its luck. You've got quite the nerve. Xiao Zhang chuckled, though it sounded more like a cold laugh. Terrified, I immediately dropped to my knees. I simply admire your Majesty and thought that if I could sit by your side, I'd die without regrets. He spoke with such infatuation. Not even Meng Jiangnu weeping at the Great Wall showed such devotion. Xiao Zhang stiffened momentarily before storming off with a flick of his sleeve. Sit if you must, but if you cry again hereafter, I shall have your mouth sewn shut. Came the thoroughly impatient retort. That really gave me a cold sweat. I truly didn't expect things to go so smoothly. As soon as I returned to my chambers, I immediately pulled Kai over and asked, do you know of any medicine that helps you sleep? If only I knew how to make sleeping pills. Kai froze momentarily. I feigned rubbing my temples and said, I haven't been sleeping well these past couple of days. Preferably something I can take with dinner that'll help me fall asleep within an hour or two. I winked at her. She winked back. After blinking a few times, she seemed to suddenly understand. With an expression that suggested she knew everything, she smiled meaningfully at me. Don't worry, miss. This servant will go find it for you right away. What a good girl. When it comes to efficiency, Kai is truly unmatched. That's one thing you can't fault her for. That same evening, she presented me with a small white porcelain bottle. I ran my fingers over its faintly suggestive peach blossom pattern in pale pink and asked her, does it work? She swore earnestly. Don't worry, miss. I got it from someone I know. It's guaranteed to work. Then I can rest easy. It was my first time drugging someone, and I couldn't help feeling excited. So excited that I didn't sleep a wink all night. And unsurprisingly, I woke up with dark circles under my eyes the next day. Kai shook her head at my panda eyes for the longest time before finally spending ages doing my makeup before the palace banquet began. You're so beautiful, miss. With just a little touch-up, you shine even brighter. No wonder the king holds you in such high regard. Kai praised me while applying my makeup. Who doesn't love being complimented? I was as happy as a blooming flower and returned the praise with a smile. Kyra is beautiful too, like a fairy. We engaged in some mutual admiration for a while, both of us laughing until we were in stitches. As a result, we nearly missed the appointed time. When I arrived at the Taiji Hall where the palace banquet was being held, many people had already gathered. All eyes turned toward me in unison, their faces filled with intense curiosity. Come here. To my side, Xiao Zhang, seated in the highest position, glanced at the prepared seat beside him. Everyone gasped sharply. I also drew a sharp breath. It was still so far away. How on earth was I supposed to slip the medicine into his food? The men and women seated below during the banquet kept glancing my way from time to time, while I kept stealing glances at Xiao Zhang's table. He hardly eats anything, just occasionally drinks a little alcohol. As long as I can secretly pour the hidden medicine into his wine glass, just as I was still racking my brains over how to do it, Kai standing beside me winked at me. I really didn't understand what she was winking about. Then she leaned down and whispered in my ear, Miss, let this servant help you. My hand holding the teacup trembled. What does this mean? This servant will go pour wine for His Majesty, ensuring not a single drop is spilled. She wore an expression of utter devotion, as if willing to go through fire and water for me. I only hope Miss won't forget this servant in days to come. I narrowed my eyes, suddenly feeling like I'd figured something out. This Kai was probably just pretending to like Xiao Zhang on the surface while actually wanting to rid the people of a scourge. Thinking this way, I solemnly and carefully shook the powder hidden under my fingernail onto her palm. Be careful. That was all I had time to whisper to her. The little girl didn't look very old, yet she had quite the nerve. I couldn't help but admire her. What impressed me even more was that she actually succeeded in mixing the powder into Xiao Zhang's wine. Everything was ready. All we needed was the east wind. As long as Xiao Zhang drinks that cup of wine, I can rid the people of this scourge. But Xiao Zhang refuses to drink. He keeps looking around, calling everyone my beloved ministers here, and no need for formalities there. He just won't drink. I gritted my teeth and said to Kai, pour me a cup of wine too, Your Majesty. Holding up my wine cup, I smiled gracefully at Xiao Zhang. I'd like to propose a toast to you. Xiao Zhang froze. The people below suddenly fell silent. Xiao Zhang frowned and said to me, learn some manners in the future. In my presence, you must refer to yourself as your humble concubine. My humble concubine, your ass. Just wait until I lock you up and refer to myself as your daddy in front of you every day. Though I cursed him over and over in my heart, the corners of my lips merely twitched before I obediently said, your humble concubine offers Your Majesty a toast. Xiao Zhang showed great respect by raising his glass and draining it in one gulp. Truly wonderful. I also smiled and downed mine in one go. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, yet for some reason my right eyelid kept twitching incessantly. Kyra comforted me, saying, perhaps the young lady didn't sleep well last night. That's certainly possible. The banquet didn't last much longer, and Xiao Zhang was the first to leave. I was the second, because I needed to follow Xiao Zhang. The moment he collapsed, I'd immediately drag him away. Why are you following me? After walking for an unknown length of time, Xiao Zhang suddenly stopped. Silently, I stepped out from behind the tree trunk with Kai. I wanted to spend more time with Your Majesty. Lies now came effortlessly to my lips. Xiao Zhang turned around and looked down at me. Do you truly like me? Fake, truer than true gold, I vowed solemnly. Xiao Zhang let out a laugh, colder than the thick night air. Damn it, this villain's smile was ridiculously handsome. If I didn't know he was the villain, I wouldn't doubt for a second that with looks like his, he could be the male lead. Do you know what kind of person I am? How dare you like me? He said these words with a smile. Yet there wasn't the slightest trace of amusement in them. It sounded rather ironic. No need to doubt, his irony was definitely aimed at me. I swallowed hard and blurted out, nonsense. No matter who Your Majesty is, I'll always adore you, that's just how love is, completely reasonless. One day, when your majesty experiences it yourself, you'll understand. This was some toxic positivity I'd stumbled upon online, never thought I'd actually use it. Xiao Zhang's smile froze on his face, his eyes darkening as if someone had poured ink into them, startlingly black. I haven't even asked. What's your name? He reached out to grip my chin, the pressure light yet impossible to shake off. I didn't flinch either, meeting his gaze directly. Xiazi, remember this name, for it shall be passed down through the ages. Perhaps this thought was too exhilarating, for I actually felt a trace of restless heat amidst the depths of winter. After that, Xiao Zhang didn't speak to me again. He walked ahead, while I was tacitly allowed to follow behind, but the further we went, the hotter it became, just as I couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to turn around to ask Kai behind me if she was also feeling hot. I suddenly realized Kai had disappeared at some point. Not only was she gone, even Xiao Zhang's attendants, who had been following behind, had vanished without a trace. Before I could think it through, Xiao Zhang ahead of me stopped again. He leaned against a nearby pillar with one hand, seemingly uncomfortable. Was the drug taking effect? Your Majesty, I couldn't hide the excitement in my voice. It's just a bit hot, too hot. I kept staring intently at Xiao Zhang while tugging at my collar. Just then, Xiao Zhang turned to look at me. By the moonlight overhead, I faintly saw Xiao Zhang's beautiful phoenix eyes tinged with peach-colored hues at the corners. What does this mean? Did he have bloodshot eyes before passing out? I kept fanning myself with my hand, not daring to act recklessly. What have you done to me? His voice was hoarse, completely different from how he'd spoken moments ago. I wanted to argue a few words, but before I could open my mouth, Xiao Zhang took a few steps to my side and grabbed one of my hands. He gritted his teeth and said to me, Xiazi, you've got some nerve. I was doing it for the people. You dare to give me this kind of drug? Me too. What? My fading consciousness suddenly snapped back to clarity. This medicine? What medicine? A thought flashed through my mind as I watched his actions at that moment. I didn't. Everything before my eyes began to blur as my consciousness gradually scattered. Xiazi. I couldn't tell if it was Xiao Zhang's voice. I couldn't care less about anything else. I was so hot I just wanted to find somewhere icy cold. At that moment, both my hands were seized by someone. Xia-ji-e. A voice drifted hazily above my head, enunciating each syllable with deliberate force. Then, with a loud splash, I was thrown into the water. With a sudden jolt, the last shreds of my rationality gathered together, and I realized I'd been thrown into a small pool. Before I could react, someone leaped beside me, splashing water that drenched me all over again. When my vision cleared, I saw it was Xiao Zhang. What the hell was going on? Xiao Zhang's eyes were terrifyingly red, and even his ears were flushed crimson as if about to drip blood. Looking downward, in stark contrast to his darkened face was his exposed chest, bearing an unmistakable scar. I hastily covered my eyes. You, what are you trying to do? This prince should be asking what you intend to do. Xiao Zhang's words, though still sharp, carried an unusual edge of irritation. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. My eyes widened as Kai's face flashed through my still groggy mind, wearing that enigmatic smile of hers. Don't tell me. Xiao Zhang took a step toward me, the water around him rippling outward in concentric circles. He lowered his head and leaned closer. Oh, then this prince shall thoroughly investigate who exactly drugged me. This, though it was indeed Kai. Who did it? She had misunderstood my intentions. Xiao Zhang was ruthless in his methods. If he truly discovered Kai was responsible, she likely wouldn't survive. It's me. I gritted my teeth. It's my lust for your majesty's body that drove me to such absurd actions. Xiao Zhang took another step toward me, forcing me to retreat step by step. Finally, my back hit the cold edge of the pool. There was nowhere left to retreat. Which of your words are true, and which are lies? He lowered his head, staring straight at me as he demanded in a low voice. I lowered my head, avoiding his gaze. If your majesty believes it, then it's true. If your majesty doesn't believe it, then it's false. Then I shall grant your wish. His words fell like a verdict. Grant me what? Before I could react, he had already scooped me out of the pool, It was clearly meant for Xiao Zhang, so why did I get caught in it too? This was my last coherent thought before losing control. After that, my entire being felt as if thrown into a burning cloud, drifting endlessly. I had no idea what had happened, until I woke up the next day. Ah. Sitting on the bed wrapped in blankets, staring at the chaotic mess of clothes on the floor, my mind was in complete turmoil. What had happened needed no explanation from anyone. Kai immediately pushed the door open and entered, her face unable to conceal her delight as she trotted all the way to the bedside. Congratulations, miss. You've gotten your wish. Her words of felicitation sounded extremely grating. I looked at her, trembling all over. Why was I drugged too? 1,000 words lingered on my tongue, but in the end, only this one question remained. Kai froze. After thinking for a long moment, she finally admitted sheepishly, I must have had dirty hands when pouring wine for you. The remnants of medicine in her palm had fallen into my wine. Good, perfect. Very well then, I might as well die, did you know? I leaned close to Kai's ear and said through gritted teeth, what I asked you for was knockout drops. Knockout drops. Kai trembled all over. She knelt by my bedside, weeping as she begged for my forgiveness while earnestly pleading with me. His Majesty treats you well, miss. You'll have boundless blessings in the future. Please don't do anything foolish. What boundless blessings? What kind of blessing could this kind of villain, who's bound to die by the male lead's hand sooner or later, possibly bring me? I massaged my temples, utterly speechless. This incident wasn't Kai's fault, nor could Xiao Zhang be blamed. The responsibility lay entirely with me for not making myself clear and clinging to Xiao Zhang while declaring my feelings for him. I sat in the bathtub, scrubbing my body over and over again. Though I consider myself a modern woman of the 21st century, I simply can't come to terms with this kind of situation. The thought that I might have been even more proactive than Xiao Zhang last night sent shivers down my spine, making me tighten my grip unconsciously. This is absolutely mortifying. Clearly, this kind of heroic deed to rid society of scum is beyond someone like me who hasn't even graduated from university yet. I'd better go seek the male lead's help. Thinking this way, I began packing my belongings that very day, determined to leave Xiao Zhang's palace. No sooner had I finished packing than someone came to inform me that Xiao Zhang was arriving with a grand procession. A grand procession? Instinctively, I glanced at Kai, who was still weeping beside me, begging me not to leave. Kai quickly shook her head. Indeed, she had been crying beside me from morning until now. Hurry up and close the door. Not a single person moved. I turned to look at them, and they took a step back. Great. I nodded angrily. I'll go by myself. Just before the heavy door closed behind me, Xiao Zhang locked eyes with me through the gap. Xiazi, he called my name from outside. What are you doing? How could he act like nothing had happened? We just had an exceptionally, utterly awkward one-night stand last night. Your Majesty, please leave. I want some peace and quiet. After taking a deep breath, I pressed against the door to shoo him away. Silence lingered outside the door for a moment. Just when I thought Xiao Zhang was angry, he asked me with some confusion, who is Jingjing? Your sister. If you wish, I can have her summoned to the palace. With this level of intelligence, how did he become a ruler of a nation? But whether he's a wise ruler or not, he's undoubtedly an unconventional villain who plays by his own rules. I told him to leave. But instead, he grabbed the door handle and tried to barge right in. If I hadn't kept my balance, I would have fallen straight into his arms when he yanked that door open. Kai stood not far from me, looking utterly disappointed when she saw I hadn't fallen into Xiao Zhang's arms. With my back turned to Xiao Zhang, I noticed people filing and carrying various items in their hands. Among them was a neatly folded bedsheet, its uppermost side stained crimson. My eyes widened in disbelief. And I was so mortified I wished I could just dash my head against something and die. If I'm not mistaken, that must be the bedsheet that bore witness to that absurd night. Xiao Zhang is actually this vicious, using this to disgust me. You saved my life once and gave me your purity. I originally intended to make you my queen, but your origins are unclear, so I can only reluctantly make you my consort for now. Just like that, I inexplicably became Xiao Zhang's consort. The happiest person in the entire palace was Kai. My lady, I always said you'd have boundless wealth and honor, she chirped while combing my hair, grinning from ear to ear. I took the neatly combed hair from her hands and walked a few steps to lie down on the bed. Would you like this wealth and honor for yourself? I glared at her and snapped irritably. She's a good girl, just not the sharpest tool in the shed. Her good intentions often lead to trouble. Absolutely cannot take her when leaving the palace. She didn't seem to catch my sarcastic tone, quickly rushing over to tuck me in while smiling. This servant isn't so fortunate. Ever since His Majesty brought you back that day, I knew His Majesty treated you differently from others. I can also read faces, she said with a smile, leaning close to my ear. Madam has the face of someone blessed with good fortune. I couldn't help but laugh. I'd heard this same line countless times from those fortune tellers under the Heaven Bridge, and the result was me blowing up with an airplane at 20. Seeing me lie down to sleep, Kai obediently withdrew. I took advantage of the darkest hour of night, grabbed the bundle I'd hidden under my bed, and climbed out through a small window at the corner. This was all thanks to my university dorm's curfew, which had made me quite skilled at climbing through windows. Sometimes people really shouldn't be blindly confident in themselves. As I crouched behind a tree, congratulating myself for evading a patrol of guards, a voice suddenly spoke right above my head. What are you doing? I was so startled that I dropped the package straight to the ground. I didn't even need to turn around to know who was standing behind me. Xiao Zhang bent down to pick up the package from the floor and asked me again, "What is this?" How was I supposed to tell him? "What are you crying about?" He had somehow moved in front of me without me noticing. Frowning slightly, I blinked rapidly and looked up at him. "I want to go home. I really do want to go home. What kind of godforsaken place is this? I might as well have just gone to be reincarnated with those old folks back then." From the very beginning, I overestimated myself, having nothing yet dreaming of eliminating evil for the people. Xiao Zhang brushed the dust off my bundle and handed it to me. "I've said before, if there's anything you want, you can ask me." I never expected him to be so accommodating. I sniffled and looked at him. "Then I want to go home." No, he's truly insane. So am I. I actually believed him. The sorrowful mood was instantly replaced by anger. I snatched the bag from his hand and turned to leave, but before I could take 2 steps, he caught up and swept me off my feet in a bridal carry. Before I could react, he tapped his toes lightly and we were airborne. Mom. Qinggong, real Qinggong. I obediently nestled in Xiao Zhang's arms as he tapped his toes lightly on the roof tiles again and again, the scenery below passing swiftly beneath my gaze. After a while, Xiao Zhang brought me to the tallest building in sight. He carefully placed me atop the roof's main ridge, where the evening breeze swept past, lifting the hem of my skirt. I looked down. From here, one could seemingly see the entire royal palace clearly. Xiao Zhang sat down beside me, placing a hand over mine that was tightly clutching his clothes. Scared, though I don't suffer from acrophobia, this place was indeed terrifyingly high. "What is this place?" I changed the subject. Kai had never mentioned such a tall structure in the royal palace. Timing Pagoda. His gaze was fixed straight ahead, though it was unclear what he was actually looking at. The place where ancestral tablets are enshrined. I froze momentarily, then turned my head to look at him. Truly worthy of being the ultimate villain, such utter sacrilege, to directly trample ancestral tablets beneath one's feet. When I was young, I hid in many places, but only here could they never find me. Xiao Zhang's lips curled slightly. "Do you think my father and mother are watching over me? What's with this sudden sense of fragility? Is this something a major villain should be saying?" Resting his head on one hand propped against his knee, he turned to look at me. "I see you're in low spirits. I'll grant you special permission to come up and take a look." I curled the corner of my mouth. "Thank you." With that, I turned back to gaze at the palace below. Though Xiao Zhang's harem stood empty and the entire palace housed few people, it remained brilliantly lit. Viewed from such heights, the sight held a unique charm. A perfect place to soothe one's mood. Achoo, my sneeze seemed to tear a hole through the silent night. At this moment, Xiao Zhang draped his cloak over my shoulders. "Did you not drink the medicine I ordered sent to you? Dare I drink it? It looked too bitter." I fabricated an excuse, to say the least. Xiao Zhang was really easy to fool. So far, he'd believe anything I told him. If the male and female leads had even half my skill at deception, they wouldn't have let him live this long. But last night, you were soaking in the pool. Before he could finish speaking, I lunged forward and clamped my hand tightly over his mouth, not letting him utter another word. But I'd clearly forgotten we were sitting on a rooftop. My sudden movement nearly sent us both tumbling down. Xiao Zhang's hand tightly shielded me from behind, barely managing to steady us. I understand. Your Majesty is right. I'll drink it tomorrow. Making him recount last night's events would be no different from throwing myself off the roof to join his ancestors in burial. To his credit, he understood social cues and didn't bring up last night's matter again. I kept sniffing back my runny nose repeatedly, making it entirely unsuitable to enjoy the scenery from such a high rooftop. So Xiao Zhang carried me back to the palace. Yes, his palace. I curled up on the bed, terrified he might make any moves. Fortunately, he simply lay beside me, carefully tucking me in before asking, "Do you have any family left at home? If you're feeling homesick, I can have your family come stay with you for a while. I happen to have parents who favor sons over daughters and a spoiled younger brother. Too bad none of them can come anymore." After taking a deep breath, I pulled the quilt over my head and muttered muffled under the covers, "Gone. They're all dead. Actually, the one who died was me. What about Jingjing you mentioned today?" The tears that had just welled up in my eyes instantly dried. "She's dead too." I turned my back to him, truly unwilling to continue this conversation. Clearly he didn't understand my meaning, reaching over to tug at my blanket again. "That makes us quite alike, a solitary soul." The very next day, someone delivered another bowl of murky black medicine. I glanced at the small box in another palace maid's hands. "What's that, madam?" "These are the candied fruits His Majesty ordered the servant to fetch for you this morning. His Majesty said if the medicine tastes bitter, madam should use these to counteract it, and must never refuse to take medicine again." The eunuch serving the medicine wore a smile that was pleasant to behold. This was one of Xiao Zhang's eunuchs, whom I vaguely remembered. I obediently drank the medicine. It wasn't actually that bitter. But I still reached for a candied fruit from the small box and placed it in my mouth. Sweet and tender, a bit awkward. No one has ever taken my words to heart like this before. Pity he's a villain who won't live long. I crossed over just in time to take a fatal blow meant for Xiao Zhang, saving him from his destined fate. But the story continues, and according to the tropes of sweet romance novels, the male and female leads must defeat the villain together before living happily ever after. Which means, no matter what, Xiao Zhang must die. Half reclining on the soft couch, I gazed at the perfect sunlight outside the door and began carefully calculating my current predicament. At this moment, Kair came in from outside, her expression somewhat unnatural. "What's wrong?" I was already accustomed to this little maid's inability to hide things. Sometimes it worked to my advantage. Kair took a few steps closer and replied, "Madam, this servant heard from he. That she saw Sister Lan outside the palace yesterday. I knew he. She was the one closest to Kair in this entire palace. Many things I know were actually learned by he. Helping Kai. Gather information. She could be considered one of our own, I suppose. Who is Sister Lan? I'd never heard of this person before. Kai. Took another step closer, glanced around cautiously, then whispered to me. She was a palace maid who once boldly offered herself to the king. The very next day, she mysteriously vanished. Everyone says the king struck her dead with a single palm and had her body dumped in the mass graves. Kai. Shook her head as she spoke. Just goes to show how unreliable rumors can be. I glanced at her. Does she know she's also one of those spreading rumors? So, madam, have you figured it out? She suddenly crouched before me, asking very seriously, "Figured out what?" That this Sister Lan was lucky enough to crawl out of the mass grave by herself? Kai. Shook her head with an expression that suggested I was hopelessly incorrigible. "I can see you're truly extraordinary to His Majesty. Extraordinary indeed. Why don't you try dying for him once, if you could bear His Majesty a little prince?" Kai. Said, her gaze drifting down to my abdomen as if she could already see her own bright future. I quickly interrupted her. "Go check what's for dinner tonight. That sour fish soup we had the other day was quite good. Ask if they can make it again today." Kai. Nodded, then suddenly realized something was amiss. But Madam said just the other day that dish wasn't good, that you didn't like sour flavors. She trailed off mid-sentence, her gaze drifting down to my abdomen before she suddenly covered her mouth in delight. Could it be? Madam is already carrying a little prince. Is she out of her mind? Before I could even open my mouth to scold her, Xiao Zhang appeared at the door. What did you say? This question was directed at Kai. His tone laced with disbelief. It wasn't just disbelief. He must have thought Kai was utterly absurd. Turning and seeing Xiao Zhang standing at the door, Kai quickly rose from her position in front of me and gave him a proper, respectful bow. Xiao Zhang stepped through the doorway, momentarily blocking the bright sunlight. What were you just saying? Nothing important. Before Kai could speak, I quickly answered for her, if she dared to say anything reckless in front of Xiao Zhang. Even I couldn't protect her, but I'd clearly underestimated Kai. Her face lit up with excitement. Reporting to your highness, this servant was saying the lady might be carrying a young prince. She never touches sour foods normally, yet today she actually said she craved sour fish soup. This reason is truly rather far-fetched. That sour fish soup was just something I mentioned casually. I hadn't even had time to think of other dishes. I closed my eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and waited to see how Xiao Zhang would punish her for that loose tongue of hers. Really, unexpectedly, Xiao Zhang suddenly looked at me with great seriousness. He took 2 steps to sit beside me, his gaze also settling on my abdomen, asking, "Shall I summon the physician now? It's only been 2 days since we were intimate, brother. Not even the emperor himself would dare claim whether I'm pregnant or not." Startled, I jolted upright from the couch and grabbed Xiao Zhang's hand. "Your Majesty, there's no need. If you keep speaking nonsense, I'll have the king deal with you." I glared at Kai. Before explaining to Xiao Zhang, it's only been 2 days. Even a physician wouldn't be able to tell anything, let alone this little maid. She's just being cheeky and joking with me. What I meant to convey was simply that Kai was joking with me. There's no possibility of pregnancy, but what Xiao Zhang heard was that it's still too early, and even physicians can't detect anything yet. Then have them check your pulse daily. I couldn't be bothered to explain it to him again. He'd find out sooner or later anyway. Xiao Zhang said today's government affairs were mostly settled, and he wanted to stay for dinner with me, planning to spend the night here as well, once he's made up his mind. My refusal wouldn't make any difference. Now I sat beside him, watching as he carefully picked out each fishbone one by one before placing the fish in my bowl. Not hungry. He tilted his head to look at me when I hesitated to pick up my chopsticks. What was I thinking at this moment? I thought, does it really matter if he's a villain or not? Even if I managed to escape safely from here, would I ever meet someone willing to pick out fish bones for me again? What are you thinking about? He waved his chopsticks in front of my eyes. I propped my head on the table with one hand, blinking at him. They all say you're a tyrant. As soon as these words fell, the already silent room seemed to grow even quieter. Everyone knelt down in unison, pressing their foreheads to the floor. Yet Xiao Zhang merely raised an eyebrow, continuing to pick at fish bones as if waiting for me to continue, but I don't seem to see it, I said slowly, watching him pick out fish bones. The people in the palace are utterly loyal to you, despite my repeated offenses. Though you've spoken harsh words, you've still treated me well. Even the palace maid rumored to have been executed by your order is alive and well outside the palace. Leaning closer until I was almost touching him, I asked, "Your Majesty, could you tell me why you're considered a tyrant, Xiazi? I've always wondered, who gave you such audacity?" I frowned slightly. I don't know. Perhaps it was your Majesty himself. Had you beaten me at my first offense, I certainly wouldn't dare act this way again. Xiao Zhang laughed. His smile was truly handsome, though one could still glimpse traces of hidden ferocity between his brows. This was the hallmark of his villainous nature. You. Xiao Zhang casually pointed at a eunuch on the ground. "Tell madam why I'm considered a tyrant." The eunuch who was pointed at took a long moment to realize Xiao Zhang was referring to him, then began trembling like a sieve. "If you can't say it, or if you say it wrong, I'll let my wife personally witness what a tyrant looks like." The young eunuch ultimately never explained why Xiao Zhang was a tyrant. he fainted before he could speak. See, Xiao Zhang smiled at me, though no warmth reached his eyes. In their eyes, I'm precisely this kind of tyrant who can frighten people into unconsciousness. Who's to blame? It's none other than himself for speaking so harshly just now. In the end, Xiao Zhang still told me why everyone regarded him as a tyrant. Lying together on the bed, he stared at the canopy above and said calmly, "When I was 16, I plunged a sword coated with deadly poison into the body of Prime Minister Gu, who raised me. Back then they said I'd gone mad, called me ungrateful, claimed I was unworthy to be king. That year when I was 17, I slaughtered every last rebel, then hung their leaders on the city walls for 3 days and 3 nights. They called me cruel and heartless then, said I lacked all humanity, swore heaven would punish me." As he spoke these words, his face remained utterly expressionless. The candlelight outside was so bright, yet not a single beam could fall into his eyes. I turned onto my side to face him. "Then why did your Majesty kill Chancellor Gu?" He seemed not to have expected such a question, his long lashes trembling slightly. "Your Majesty must have had reasons, right?" I propped myself up to look at him. "From what I've heard, your Majesty has never slaughtered innocent commoners." He blinked his eyes and let out a long sigh. 5 years ago, your country suffered a once-in-a-century flood. The people were plunged into misery, with countless casualties. Then 2 years ago, an unprecedented drought struck, leaving many regions without harvests and countless starving to death. They all say it's because of my cruelty and incompetence, that these are punishments sent by heaven. I pursed my lips. Ancient people were always so quick to believe in these absurd superstitions. None of this has anything to do with you, really. I looked at Xiao Zhang and explained very seriously, these are just natural phenomena. Even if you weren't the ruler, they would still have happened. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Xiao Zhang turned his head to look at me, then pulled me into his embrace. "Xiazi, you truly are devoted to me? Forget it, he's crazy. I shouldn't stoop to his level." Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep in Xiao Zhang's arms. Hazily, I heard his faint whisper, "Xiazi, you must never betray me." It wasn't a threatening tone, more like pleading with me. I frowned and instinctively replied, This was entirely a promise made without clear consciousness, yet I remembered it perfectly when I came to my senses. I sat at the table, propping my head with one hand, poking at the congee in my bowl with chopsticks again and again. "Has Madame lost her appetite again today, Kai?" Asked with concern upon seeing me like this. I was simply feeling extremely anxious about my future. For some reason, though I'm not usually someone who keeps promises very faithfully, this time I truly didn't want to go back on my word. Xiao Zhang came over right after morning court and said he wanted to take me somewhere. He seemed different today from how he usually was, as he held my hand and led me forward step by step. I could almost see sparkling lights dancing in his eyes. Sunlight fell upon him, and for the first time, I glimpsed the spirited vigor of youth radiating from him. My heart softened as well. The place he brought me to was a tall pagoda, with a plaque above the door reading, Timing Tower. It was the same place he had taken me that day, only last time we were on the roof, and this time we were entering through the main gate. Inside the tower, as he had said, were many ancestral tablets enshrined. With only 2 tablets placed separately in another room, Xiao Zhang knelt properly before the 2 memorial tablets. "Mother, your son has brought his bride to see you." These words felt like an electric current, instantly piercing through my ears and coursing through my entire body. I quickly knelt down as well, momentarily at a loss for words. "She lacks some manners," Xiao Zhang said with a smile to the tablets placed above, "but she treats your son very well. Please do not blame her." Father and mother, my face flushed red. I haven't been particularly kind to him. Just recently I even considered taking matters into my own hands to deal with him. At this thought, I quickly bowed to the memorial tablets and said, "Rest assured, I will treat His Majesty well." From then on, basking in Xiao Zhang's favor, I completely let myself go. I stopped thinking about escaping the palace and spent my days indulging in food, drink, and entertainment, which caused me to gain quite a bit of weight. Sometimes I can't even tell whether I've fallen for Xiao Zhang or if I've just grown fond of this laid-back lifestyle. Xiao Zhang treats me well and has never subjected the palace servants to cruel punishments, making me gradually forget he was originally a villain. A villain who shouldn't have gotten a happy ending, though he's never actually committed any heinous acts. He remains a villain nonetheless. What is meant to come will come. His Majesty said he would be handling state affairs late into the night today and asked her ladyship to rest on her own. The eunuch by Xiao Zhang's side came to deliver the message before dinner. Apart from this, he said nothing else. Yet an inexplicable unease gripped my heart. Kai helped me lie down, and I grasped her hand to ask, "Do you know what's happened? I heard Wu's army has already reached our border." Kai replied while tucking me in and soothing me. "Madam needn't worry, His Majesty will surely handle it." How could I not worry? This time, there wouldn't be another me crossing over to take a blow for him. I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. I didn't know whether it was because I'd grown accustomed to being held by Xiao Zhang every night, or because I was worried about our future together. The situation must have become quite dire. Xiao Zhang barely had time to eat with me anymore, only managing to visit briefly each day. I didn't have much appetite myself, so I had Kai pack some of his favorite dishes to bring to him unexpectedly, as soon as I reached outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony where he handled state affairs. I heard the sound of things being smashed. Useless. Xiao Zhang's furious voice came from within. "Round up all the rebels and throw them onto Wuji Mountain." Behind me, Kai trembled violently. I turned to look at her, and only then did she speak. "Mount Wuji is teeming with fierce beasts and venomous creatures. Those thrown in there won't even leave behind a single intact bone." Xiao Zhang never showed mercy to those who betrayed him. "Get out, all of you, get out." The palace doors swung wide open as a crowd came scrambling out in panic. After everyone had left, I finally took a proper look inside. Xiao Zhang stood behind the desk with his back to the door, dressed in a dark robe, appearing solitary and desolate. I entered with Kai. Hearing footsteps, Xiao Zhang turned and said, "This prince ordered you to." He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes were bloodshot, his brows still furrowed with lingering ferocity. His lips parted. But all that came out was a hoarse whisper of my name. It sent a tremor straight to my heart. I think I might be a little fond of him, not just because of the comfortable life he's given me. "How long has it been since you've eaten?" Pretending not to notice the hostility on his face, I took the food box from Kai and placed it on the table. "I haven't eaten either. Will you keep me company? Are you afraid?" As always, he picked out my favorite dishes and placed them in my bowl. Finally feeling somewhat hungry, I took a bite and mumbled, "Are you afraid of such loneliness?" I blinked, swallowing the food in my mouth before asking him in return, "Will you kill me?" His chopsticks paused midair. "No." "Then will you protect me?" "Yes." I smiled and continued eating from my bowl. "Then why would I be afraid of you? I'm not crazy." Xiao Zhang remained busy handling military affairs, yet no matter how busy he was, he would always come to dine with me. I knew he feared a recurrence of what happened last time. He worried I might be frightened again, worried I might grow to dislike him. Lately, I've been increasingly drowsy, lacking enthusiasm for anything and having little appetite for food. Since Xiao Zhang had the physician come last time and they couldn't confirm whether I was pregnant, I told the physician not to come again. The probability of conceiving after just one time is so small, I was certain it couldn't happen to me. Yet Xiao Zhang remained convinced I was pregnant, treating me with extreme care and never touching me in bed. Kai, go summon the physician to examine me. Considering recent symptoms, I began to feel uneasy. The physician was still the same one who had saved my life that day, young but quite capable. He properly took my pulse and finally smiled, saying, "Congratulations, my lady, you're 2 months pregnant." Indeed, His Majesty possesses extraordinary insight, able to detect pulses that elude even my perception. Hearing this, Kai was overjoyed and promptly fetched a reward for him. Only I was left with a mind utterly blank. I'm pregnant, in my 20th year. Before I could share this news with Xiao Zhang, I first heard he was leading troops to war. "Can I come with you?" I asked Xiao Zhang. The words escaped my lips before I realized it. Afterward, I didn't even understand why I wanted to go. What could I possibly do if I go? Could I really take a hit for him? I couldn't. Maybe I don't love him that much yet. Xiao Zhang patted my head, wait here for me to come back. I looked up at him, my eyes burning as if I were about to cry. You'll come back safely, right? He nodded, cupped my face in his hands, and gently kissed my forehead. With you waiting for me, I'll definitely return. His touch was tender, careful not to hurt me, thinking carefully. It's not strange at all that I would like him, after all. I've never been treated so seriously by anyone since I was a child. Your Majesty, why are you so good to me? Is it because I saved you? I sat with him on the roof of the Timing Tower. The wind howled past my ears, and the cloak he draped over my shoulders flapped loudly in the wind. He nodded, then shook his head. I ascended the throne when I was only 6 years old. Chancellor Gu said I was still young and that he would assist me, guide me, but in truth, he bound me, manipulated me. He hid behind me to commit every evil deed, then pinned all the blame on my head. I became the tyrant everyone despised, the rebellious ingrate who wouldn't heed advice, while he remained the virtuous minister, the benevolent mentor. I thought obeying him would let me grow up safely. Never did I imagine his ambition would grow so vast. He actually laced my meals with poison, trying to make me die unnoticed, to perish as a tyrant struck down by heaven's wrath. He spoke these words with complete calm on his face, as if telling someone else's story. I hugged him heartbrokenly, yet couldn't find words to comfort him. The things he described were all too unfamiliar, too terrifying, too distant for me. The path of an emperor was never easy, let alone ascending the throne at such a young age. He reached out and pulled me closer, resting his chin atop my head. Everyone either sought to exploit me or wanted me dead. Only you, descending from the heavens, shielded me with your delicate frame, risking your own life to save mine. Truth be told, it wasn't intentional. I once suspected you had ulterior motives, or that you were a spy sent by some faction, but you always gazed at me so earnestly, whispering time and again that your heart belonged to me. I hastily raised my hand to cover his mouth. If I say any more, you'll accuse me of throwing myself at you. He reached out and caught my hand, pressing a gentle kiss to my palm. A dense, tingling sensation spread through me, as if his lips had brushed against the very core of my heart. Because of you, I finally feel like a human being. Xiao Zhang's lips lingered against my fingers as he whispered softly, I don't know how to love. No one ever taught me. I don't know if you can feel it, but I truly love you so much. Before he could finish speaking, I leaned in, tilting my head slightly to press my lips against his. No one knew how to love someone better than he did. His love was so intense that I simply couldn't ignore it. Perhaps my movement was too abrupt. We both tilted backward and began falling from the rooftop. Startled, I instinctively tried to look down, but his hand pressed against my head to stop me. The sound of wind by my ears seemed to fade as Xiao Zhang's kiss aggressively took dominance. I've fallen in love with Xiao Zhang. I don't know exactly when it began. Falling in love with someone turns out to be this inexplicable and irresistible. On the eve of Xiao Zhang's departure for battle, I slept exceptionally soundly in his arms. When I woke up, he was already gone. His Majesty said he feared Madame would be distressed, so he set off last night after Madame fell asleep. Kai explained while chasing after me as I searched frantically through the palace. Madame, please be careful not to exhaust yourself. Yes, I haven't told Xiao Zhang yet that I'm carrying his child. Never mind. I'll give him a surprise when he returns safely. He will definitely come back safely. The days waiting for Xiao Zhang are dull and tedious. The physician comes to examine me every few days, giving me many instructions. That day I suddenly called out to stop him. That day you said you revived me using an ancient method from old texts. What exactly was that method? If anything were to happen to Xiao Zhang, perhaps I could use the same method. The physician looked at me hesitantly, as if wanting to speak but holding back. Madam, forgive my offense. That method cannot be disclosed. He's lying. I walked up to him, staring into his shifty eyes, and enunciated each word clearly. If you don't speak, I won't let you leave the royal palace alive today. I was mimicking Xiao Zhang's manner. He always frightened people this way. Perhaps my imitation was too convincing, for the physician suddenly dropped to his knees with a thud, wailing, "Spare me, my lady. His Majesty swore to slaughter my entire family if I breathed a single word to you. I've got an 80-year-old mother above and newborn puppies below. Have mercy on this humble servant." Indeed, when it comes to scaring people, Xiao Zhang remains unmatched. In the end, The physician never revealed the method he used, seeing how troubled I was by this matter. Kai claimed she had a way to make him talk. Her method was to enlist her good friend He to gather information. He employed a subtle charm offensive. Though she didn't manage to extract the exact resurrection method from the physician, she did obtain that ancient medical text. Ancient medical texts were hard to come by. I searched the palace library for 3 days before finally finding it tucked away in a corner. Turning to the relevant page, I found several densely written sheets. Though one was missing from the middle, all I could make out were 3 words: heart's blood. Place the recently deceased in an ice coffin, then nourish them with a bowl of heart's blood mixed with rare medicinal herbs. This could summon their spirit back. To wake or not to wake depends entirely on the individual. Suddenly, I remembered the scar I had seen on Xiao Zhang's chest that day. At the time, I thought it was just the kind of scar a villain ought to have. Never could I have imagined it was there because he had drawn heart's blood for me. Perhaps due to overwhelming emotions, coupled with my pregnancy, I actually fainted while holding that ancient medical text. When I woke again, I had already been carried back to my bedchamber. The physician stood by my bedside. If only heart's blood is needed, then why was it the king's heart's blood? What was missing on that torn page? I grabbed the physician's robe, desperate to know the answer. This time, the physician didn't insist on keeping it from me. It requires the heart's blood of someone born under extreme Een. The king happens to have been born in a Een year, Een month, Een day, and Een hour. Combined with the toxins accumulated in his body from taking poison since childhood, his heart's blood is the most Een rich. That's why Madame woke up so quickly. Heart's blood, cutting open a living chest to draw blood. How excruciating that must have been. My nose stung with emotion as I released the physician's robe and motioned for everyone to leave. Kai dismissed all attendants, then carefully knelt by the bedside, taking my hand as she pleaded. His Majesty exhausted tremendous effort to bring you back. My lady, you must treasure your health. How much he must have suffered, I murmured, turning to Kai as tears slid from the corners of my eyes. He'd confessed his initial suspicion that I'd saved him with ulterior motives, yet still he'd willingly drawn blood from his heart to revive me. Ever since he was 6 years old, no one had ever stood in front to protect him again. Why on earth did the author of this book portray him as a villain? What kind of villain is he supposed to be? His Majesty already has a consort. Kai gently wiped away the tears at the corner of my eye with a handkerchief, soothing me softly. Ever since the consort arrived, His Majesty seems like a completely different person. Yes, I'm here. I pulled myself together and began pondering over that ancient medical text again. There must be other methods I can use. Before I could fully decipher the ancient medical text, news arrived of Xiao Zhang's disappearance. The king suffers from chronic illness. Unable to withstand the Wu general's assault during battle, he retreated under the cover of his royal guards, only to be ambushed by Qin troops lying in wait behind enemy lines. His current whereabouts remain unknown. This news was delivered to me by a young soldier kneeling before me. He was covered in blood, clear evidence of how desperately he had fought to bring this message through. My medical manual fell to the ground with a sharp clatter. I had considered countless possibilities, but never anticipated his disappearance. After ordering someone to take the little soldier to the physician, I began packing my belongings. Kai followed behind me, anxiously pacing in circles. Madam, what are you doing? Without turning to look at her, I replied, I'm going to find him. I will find him. For some reason, I always feel like I must go. There's this premonition in my heart that Xiao Zhang won't survive if I don't go. After saying this, I suddenly thought of something and turned to look at her. Kair, will you come with me? The journey ahead will undoubtedly be fraught with dangers. And I originally didn't want to bring Kair along, but apart from this Yu Kingdom Palace, I'm unfamiliar with this place. I'm afraid I'd perish before even finding Xiao Zhang. Kai froze for a moment, then nodded emphatically. Wherever Madam goes, this servant follows. As we were about to leave the palace, I thought it over and decided to bring along that physician who had both elderly parents and young children to support. Seeing Kai summon he As well, the physician readily agreed to come with me. The soldiers said they were ambushed near Mount Hang, so we'll head there first. Thus began my journey to find my husband, a pregnant woman accompanied only by 2 young palace maids and a physician. These were the kinds of plot developments I'd only ever expected to read about in novels, yet here they were happening to me. Pity I'm not the heroine. When the King of Hell sent me back, he didn't bother giving me any cheat codes either. This journey was destined to be anything but smooth. We hadn't traveled far from the palace when all our money was stolen clean. I don't know how novels would write this part, but we ended up returning to the palace once more, gathering new funds and taking a different route. Had we not encountered mountain bandits later, I might never have discovered that Xiao Zhang had secretly left his most elite shadow guards with me. The shadow guards only appear when I'm in danger, materializing unseen and vanishing just as mysteriously. Sitting in the drafty ruined temple, watching the flickering flames sway in the wind, I wondered, if Xiao Zhang had taken these shadow guards with him, would he have avoided the ambush? Would he still be missing now? The soldiers mentioned Xiao Zhang had old injuries. They must have been referring to when he drew heart's blood for me before fully recovering from the last great battle. All these days, I've been haunted by the thought, was it because I crossed worlds to take that blow meant for Xiao Zhang that fate decreed he must die for me in return? His Majesty is blessed by heaven. My lady need not worry too much. Kai always consoles me like this, yet she knows nothing. She doesn't know we're all characters in a book, that every character has their own destined fate. She doesn't know Xiao Zhang is fated to die, but I'm not a character in the book. Since I could save Xiao Zhang once, I can surely save him countless more times. After enduring countless hardships, we finally reached the Hengshan region. Originally, we planned to rest before entering the mountains. Unexpectedly, we encountered a Wu Kingdom military unit, 3 pretty little ladies. It's been ages since I've seen such beauties. The lecherous leader of the thugs swallowed hard as he stared at us. Pretending not to be scared would be a lie. But knowing the shadow guards were nearby gave me some comfort. The burly man had only taken a few steps toward us when shadow guards appeared from nowhere, shielding us. These shadow guards were elites trained by Xiao Zhang. Taking on 2 opponents each wouldn't be a problem for them, but there were many soldiers, and the shadow guard leader had to turn back during the fight, urging us to flee quickly. Together, we escaped into Mount Hang. Mount Hang is vast. The villagers at its foot say that once you enter, whether you make it out alive depends entirely on fate. As I stood lost in the mountains, I couldn't help regretting why I hadn't chosen liberal arts. At least then I'd have learned more geography. We groped our way forward step by step, until we saw the giant beast's footprints on the ground. When that lion, whose maw was large enough to swallow 3 of me, opened its bloody jaws toward me, I nearly collapsed from terror. But Xiao Zhang was still waiting for me. I grabbed Kai. And he. And ran. But clearly we were no match for the king of the forest. In the end, we leaped off a cliff edge. According to novel tropes, if we survived this, great fortune would surely follow. Such fortune would either lead us to a hidden master or some legendary treasure. Fiction never lies. We found Xiao Zhang. He lay at the mouth of the cave, barely alive. Xiao Zhang. I called his name, my voice trembling. This was the first time I called him by his name. I had thought I would burst out laughing when I did, yet I never expected to nearly burst into tears instead. His eyes were tightly shut, and when he heard me call him, his brows furrowed slightly. Ignoring the pain in my body, I threw myself at him and held him tightly, the tears I had held back all this time now flooding out like a broken dam. It's good that he's alive. It's good that he's alive. Xiao Zhang's injuries were so severe that the physician sighed repeatedly while treating him. For His Majesty to hold on until now is nothing short of a miracle. After briefly bandaging Xiao Zhang's wounds, the physician sighed deeply once more. Turning to look at me, he suddenly exclaimed, "My lady, I just realized my skirt was covered in blood, so that's why my stomach hurt. The baby's gone." Before Xiao Zhang could wake up, I passed out. Jumping from such a high cliff, how could anyone possibly be unharmed? In my dazed state, I drifted back to the underworld court. "Why are you back again?" The King of Hell's eye twitched when he saw me. I glanced around. Sure enough, it was the familiar underworld court I knew. The only difference was that Oxhead, who was usually inseparable from Horseface, was nowhere to be seen. Horseface beside me quickly flipped through the notebook in his hand, finally stopping at a page and sighing in relief. It's fine, she'll be going back soon. I didn't need to guess to know what that notebook in his hand was. I immediately floated over, trying to snatch his notebook. Show me Xiao Zhang's. The Horseface dodged my hand, taking 2 steps back. He's not in this ledger. As he spoke, he somehow produced a book from nowhere and handed it to me. It was precisely that novel the King of Hell had wanted to show me earlier, the one I'd been too impatient to read before crossing over. Turning to the section where I transmigrated, I noticed a red line drawn through the original plot point where Xiao Zhang was killed by the male lead with a single palm strike. What followed was an account of everything that had happened between Xiao Zhang and me during this period, until I found Xiao Zhang in the cave. The pages afterward were completely blank. What's going on? I flipped through it briefly back then. The entire book was already finished. Because of you, variables entered. And everything afterward became variables. Horseface walked over to me and peered at the book in my hands. This Xiao Zhang, quite interesting. The King of Hell cleared his throat above. This king said he would compensate you, and this king keeps his word. What kind of compensation is this supposed to be? You should leave now, Oxhead reminded me.
Came in from outside. Surprised to see me already awake. I didn't just wake up early. I didn't sleep a wink all night. You told me you're an old hand in the palace, so you know the royal residence like the back of your hand, I said, staring at her without blinking. She seemed to have anticipated my question, showing not a trace of panic on her face. Since Madam has discovered it, this servant has nothing left to hide. I've been thinking all night, but I still can't figure out who Kaya really is. And what her purpose is in coming to my side. Since her appearance, she hasn't done anything harmful to me and has been quite dutiful in her responsibilities. Yet upon closer reflection, something still feels off. You're truly not simple. Hearing Kai say this, my expression changed. Xiao Zhang was the major antagonist in the book. He himself admitted that countless people wanted him dead, and initially suspected I was an assassin sent by his enemies. I knew for certain I wasn't any assassin. But Kai might be a different story. Kai placed the wash basin she was holding onto a nearby shelf before taking a few steps toward me. She walked with such composed ease that she no longer resembled a mere palace maid at all. I couldn't help but shrink back a couple of steps toward the inner side of the bed. Don't come any closer. Just say what you need to from there, I said, still feeling somewhat uneasy, with Xiao Zhang absent now and me having no martial skills whatsoever. If she truly were an assassin, I'd be done for right here. Kai chuckled and swept her hand across her face. It's just me, Bull's head. My arms gave way beneath me, and I collapsed straight onto the bed. The King of Hell said he couldn't let you go back anymore. It would affect his performance metrics, so he sent me to assist from the sidelines. With another wave of her hand, she transformed back into Kai's appearance. I've got the script in my hands, so of course I know the palace inside out. I blinked my eyes. So you deliberately messed up the aphrodisiac? I gnashed my teeth in fury. She blinked innocently. Not really. It was he. Who got it wrong? I thought this one was kind of interesting too, so I didn't change it. So, the one in my cup, was that intentional too? I gripped the blanket beside me tightly. That really wasn't on purpose. It just fell in from my hand. She continued blinking innocently. Yeah. Right, like I believe that. You can leave now. I want some peace. I turned over, not wanting to look at her. Hearing her take 2 steps away, I called her back again, gripping the pillow without turning to face her. I asked calmly, so when are you going back? I've applied to Yama to go back with you, she said with a laugh. What do you think? Pretty loyal of me, right? Not bad. I curled my lips slightly, closing my eyes contentedly to catch up on sleep. You may leave. 5 months after arriving here, I finally met the legendary male and female protagonists. I sat beside Xiao Zhang hosting a banquet together for envoys from the states of Wu and Qin. This is my wife. Xiao Zhang introduced me to everyone. Not long ago, he said he wanted to make me his queen, but I refused. I told him that where I come from, a man can only have one wife. And they all call their wives a madam. I was willing to be his wife. From then on, he always called me Madam Ai. It was somewhat adorable. The crowd bowed to me. May the lady be blessed. I smiled as I looked down, spotting the female lead seated beside the male lead, who was also gazing back at me. She was heroic and spirited, her eyes gleaming with confidence and independence. Seeing me look at her, she didn't shy away but instead smiled back at me. No wonder she's the female lead. After the banquet, the female lead called out to me from her perch in the tree in the back garden. "I'm a transmigrator," I blurted out. "You too?" I widened my eyes to look at her, and she swung her legs on the tree branch with an "I knew it" expression. I've read this novel before, but the ending wasn't like this, so I figured someone must have entered and become the variable, the female lead said with a smile, slightly bending down to look at me. I never expected it would be Xiao Zhang's wife. Half a year ago when I saw him, his brows were furrowed with an unshakable aura of hostility. When crossing swords with Ling Xiao, every move was ruthless. As if he was seeking death, she plucked a leaf from a nearby branch. Yet in just half a year, he now looks like a groom who just married the love of his life. "You're truly remarkable." I sat down on a stone bench nearby and smiled as I accepted her praise. "We're quite alike in that regard. General Ling has been protecting you everywhere. He's truly a good man. Of course, we're practically fellow villagers after all. Let's exchange names." She jumped down from the tree. "I'm Nan Yu. My name is Xia Zi." She somehow produced 2 jars of wine from nowhere, saying she wanted to tell me the story of how she came to this world. We weren't very good drinkers, and after finishing half a jar, we started hugging the wine jar and crying. "I'm even worse off than you, woo-woo. I haven't even read this novel, and I'm scared I'll die every day," I sobbed while patting her shoulder, and to make matters worse, I accidentally slept with the villain. She reached out to hug me, and we cried together in a heap. In the end, Xiao Zhang and Ling Xiao had to come together to end the drinking session. Xiao Zhang carried me away while Ling Xiao hauled her off. I was carried back to the palace chambers by Xiao Zhang, who placed me on the bed with such gentleness, as if I were a porcelain doll that might shatter at any moment. How terrified must he be of losing me to act like this? I cupped his face and planted a loud, smacking kiss on his lips. "Xiao Zhang, don't worry, I'll stay with you for a lifetime." Xiao Zhang's gaze grew even darker. "Okay, this is the second time I've done such a thing since being with Xiao Zhang. The first time was because of aphrodisiac powder, this time it's because of love. We couldn't control ourselves and spent a wild night together." The physician confirmed my pregnancy again on the year's first snowfall. Overjoyed upon hearing the physician's words, I rushed to share the news with Xiao Zhang, only to meet him on the way. He had returned early out of concern for me. "We're going to have a child." As these words left my lips, heavy snow began to fall around us. Xiao Zhang quickly removed his cloak and draped it over me, covering me from head to toe. His eyes brimmed with happiness, as if nothing in this world could bring him greater joy. "It's snowing. I've never seen such heavy snow before." I lifted my head from my cloak, feeling the chill of the snowflakes, my eyes sparkling as I tugged Xiao Zhang forward. "Did you know? They say if 2 people walk together in the snow, they'll grow old together." When I first read this online, I thought it was the most romantic thing ever. Too bad I'm a true southerner through and through. I'd never seen heavy snow before, but Xiao Zhang clearly wasn't the romantic type. He pulled the cloak back over my head and scooped me up in his arms. "We'll surely grow old together, but you mustn't catch cold." The end. Extra chapter. I gave birth to a chubby baby boy, but I couldn't tell whether Xiao Zhang liked him or not, because he never held him. He'd rather have me hold our son while he held me instead. Until one day when our son cried for hours and he didn't even hold him once. I was so angry I didn't speak to him for 2 days. "If you don't like our son, then banish us both to the cold palace together," I said, then immediately ordered Kai to pack my things as I intended to move to the cold palace. I don't dislike him. Xiao Zhang's face was full of panic as he blocked my path. I glanced at him and was about to hand our son over. "Then you hold him." His expression shifted repeatedly before he finally reached out with trembling hands and stiffly took the baby. "He's so small. What if I crush him?" he asked cautiously, his arms frozen stiffly, afraid to move. His words stunned me for a moment, then Kai, and I laughed so hard we couldn't straighten our backs. Xiao Zhang had endured too much hardship in his childhood, so he wanted to compensate our son with everything that was best. Even selecting a wet nurse took a full month. "This is the most suitable wet nurse chosen from this batch for the little prince," Kai introduced with a smile as she led the woman before me. I was soothing my son when I heard her speak, only then lifting my head to look at the woman standing behind her. My hand, which had been patting my son, froze midair. This humble woman, Li Shi, pays her respects to the madam. The woman bowed to me. My eyes reddened as I suppressed the turmoil in my heart and asked Li Shi, "How many children do you have at home?" With a smile, Li replied, I have a daughter, and a son still in swaddling clothes. Madam looks familiar. It seems my daughter bears some resemblance to you. Naturally, she would. She closely resembles my mother from another world too. Madam Lee primarily took care of my son, and when Kai was too busy, she occasionally looked after my daily needs as well. That afternoon during nap time, she had originally been sitting on the other side soothing my son to sleep, but at some point she had moved to my side. She gently pulled the thin blanket that had slipped down back over me, startling me awake. As I looked at her, it was as if I were seeing my mother. But mother had never treated me like this. Please rest, my lady. Let this humble woman tuck you in so you don't catch cold. Her voice was gentle, as if speaking to her own daughter who'd just given birth. I softly murmured and turned over, not daring to look at her anymore. My lady, might these old things be bestowed upon this humble woman? When I had Kai sorting through some worn hairpins and ornaments, she asked with great embarrassment. I looked at her. She said somewhat sheepishly, my daughter has recently taken a liking to these pretty hairpins and ornaments. She wanted to take them to give to her daughter. She must be very good to her daughter. I suppose her daughter must be living much better than I am. That night, I lay in Xiao Zhang's arms, burying my face in his chest, and asked him gloomily, shall we have a daughter too? That way, my daughter would have parents who adore her and an older brother who dotes on her in every way, a true princess. Xiao Zhang's hand, which had been wandering on my back, immediately jerked away. It's all my fault. I won't provoke you anymore. He placed his hand on top of my head and ruffled my hair. The doctor said you need to recover properly. Just bear with it a little longer. The gloom in my heart instantly dissipated, replaced by a fiery blush that burned across my face. That's not what I meant, I protested with laughter. He continued stroking my head gently, as if smoothing fur. I know, it's me who needs to bear with it. In the end, I never managed to bear a daughter. The physicians said it might be because of that miscarriage years ago. It damaged my body, and then giving birth to the little prince drained me completely. But Nanyu had a daughter. I chased after her, wanting to hold her baby girl, but she stubbornly refused. You look exactly like the human trafficker reported in the news before, she yelled back at me while running away with her child in her arms. No wonder she practices martial arts. Her footwork is truly impressive. In a couple of days, I'll have Xiao Zhang teach me some lightness skills too. In the pavilion nearby sat Xiao Zhang and Ling Xiao. As I passed by, I saw Xiao Zhang hand over the jade pendant he always wore to Ling Xiao. If Ae likes daughters, then I shall use this as a token to betroth them. Ling Xiao glanced at the jade pendant in his hand and pursed his lips. No way, let's talk about it in a few years. I chuckled and continued chasing Nanyu. The air was filled with our laughter and playful curses. Fortunately, that day I said to the King of Hell, I choose the second option. The end.